Excuse me. Yeah, so having a little look at the bottom now, and this is everything behind this foliage at the front, these twigs, these rose twigs and branches. So I've got to almost look behind, and again, starting with the darker areas. Now, you can use your paper as though that is the darker areas, or you can go a bit darker. Now, I did choose earlier to go a bit darker, but that's just because I like a big contrast, but not everybody does. So I'm just going to test a couple of colours again just to see what I want tonight. And I also put like a warmer one in as well, and quite decided I quite liked that. And this is what I was saying about exploring with pastels. Oh, it was that I brought in a bright pink and I thought, oh, I really like that. So sometimes like there isn't a really bright pink in that one necessarily, but I just thought, oh, I quite like it. So this is where you can make the decision. So I'm just going to bring a small amount of really dark in, but I could use my paper instead. If you prefer a lighter palette, then by all means do that there. When I'm getting near the edge, I'm just being a little bit more mindful though, because I don't want to go over the top and muddy those colours. So I'm keeping it down here a little bit. There's also a little bit down here behind. And I am here quite happy. So this is the other way. You can leave a gap between your paper. So if you don't want to cover everything and you're quite happy to make that a bit thinner or finer, then that's the other option. I don't think I had a lot of this in, to be fair. I think I just had a small amount in underneath where I just thought, oh, yeah. So I'm just a very thin amount. And I am really spreading that out because I actually don't want it to be too in depth, the colour. And of course, right now it looks like just a big old splodge. So this is where we have to not worry too much because I know that it will be fine as we go through. Because we're just prepping the background. If we can see it as like just creating a little bit of scaffolding there for our what we're going to do on top, then that's fine. So I'm also just going to pop in underneath this tree where this tree is going to go. I'll pop in a slightly different colour, which I really liked earlier, which is just this brighter purpley colour. Because I don't have a cool purple in my set. And again, this is what we're saying, all the sets will have different tones in them. And that's all we can explore with. And sometimes we end up using one and we actually quite like it. You think, oh, not everyone thought to do that. So I'm just going to bring in a few tones here around because I'm going on this background. I'm not, as I said, I'm not worrying. Just a little bit down here. Just going to spread that out a little bit. A little bit down there. I'm going to use some of this to come through, some of this into the background as well. I'm just going to load this up a little bit more because it's quite thin. And, sometimes you might want to be thin, sometimes you might want to add a little bit more to your paper. Now, this is a particularly hard colour, so going back, even within the sets, you might have a colour that is really difficult, much more difficult to move. And this is the one from my set that is more difficult to move. It just depends. Sometimes you get, the way the pigments are put together, you might have one. And again, it's learning that as you're doing it, that, oh, right, in my set, this particular one's a little bit more, compact or whatever. And then it's going, getting the lighter ones in as well. So I'm going to use, I think I used a pink actually, a pinky one. I'm going to try that one. So I'm going to keep some of this colour in as well, but I'm also going to add in elements of a lighter, brighter one. I'm going to put a little bit, plenty on there. Now I've got to be careful because I'm going to kind of merge this over the top and I don't want to muddy it. So first thing is making sure your finger or whichever tool that you're using is nice and clear. And then really softly, if you've gone over a dark one, or if you're going over another one, you can just literally just brush it nice and lightly over the top. You can kind of rub in the areas that are, but I'm just literally just brushing that over the top like that. So it's pulling those colours out. And wherever the really light bits are, I'm going in with this one. Now I could have gone in with a creamy colour. You can go in with what you want. That's the whole point. Just have a little go and see. So I'm now out dragging that very gently over the top and here. Oh no. And I'm bringing a little bit up behind here. Just get that gorgeous light coming through, don't we? In all these hedgerows. I just love it. It's beautiful. And so again, it just looks like lots of blobs. At some point, it would be great to have a little look at what you've done so far as well when you get a little bit more on from a distance. If you can kind of give yourself a meter to hold it away and see, makes such a difference at this stage because from a distance, it's so different. So again, I'm bringing it over a darker colour. I'm just softly bringing it with my fingertip. I'm not rubbing at all, keeping that clear, but I put quite a bit of pressure on there. So it's still, you can see it feels like fused, doesn't it? So where else I've got here? Bit there, a bit that side. Again, just, there's nothing under it. I can rub it a bit, but I'm just dragging that almost, you're bringing that soft light over the top. What you might need to do is check your pastel though. So because what we can do is end up transferring, so you can see it on this one actually, look, transferring other colours onto your pastels. So just give your pastels every now and again a bit of a wipe just to keep you know, any darker colours that have gone onto them a little bit clear. And then there's some here, although some of it seems to be coming over the top, but I'm just going to pop in, keep popping a few of these colours in softly. Softly over. And now it's starting to feel really blurry, which is what we want. We want this, the background colours to feel blurry. Although when we look at it, we've got to stop ourselves from going, oh, it looks terrible. Because once we get all the fabulous layers on over the top with all of the, you know, the grasses or the foliage or whatever we're putting over, it'll change dramatically. And we want that to feel blurry in the background. So just keep looking through. Is there anywhere you want to pop on? There might be, you know, certainly like you might have some lines going up and down that are a bit linear in, you know, like lines rather than dots or whatever, that you can kind of put those up and down as well or across. Just have a little go. You might have some that cross over. And I'm leaving some of these other colours of the paper to come through as well. Now, what I probably will do in here, I'm just going to pop a couple of other things I can see, is going again with a lighter one. You might have just in a couple of spots something that's a bit lighter. So I'm going to do that. And these are where I'd say use it really sparingly because you don't want them everywhere, otherwise they won't stand out. But just where there's something, that bit, you know, that's really bright. And again, very softly with the tip of my pad. I'm hardly keep blowing that chalk dust off as well. That's the other thing. Hardly using it. And I think that's all I'm going to put on there for the moment. And again, softly does it. There we go. So that's all I'm going to pop on there. For now, I might just have a quick look back and see if there's anything I want to brighten here. So, you know, do I want to put in any brighter colours in there? I might just add a few here just before, because sometimes we look back where we started, we think, ah, I'm really getting into the flow now, but I didn't quite get the colours. But again, I've got to be really tentative now because I've got some quite a lot of, you know, darker colours in there as well. And again, you know, check with your pastel. There's nothing coming through. And you can then, see, this is a problem I've got now with a very soft pastel is that it just starts disintegrating on there. But we just learn to work around the pastels that we've got, really. I'm just trying to brighten up a couple of areas that I've seen that I'd like to be a bit lighter there before I go on with the top layer, because I won't really be able to do that then. It'll be a bit more difficult anyway. It's quite confused. It's all over my fingers. That's how chalky that is. So I'm just going to bring that in there. There we go. Right. Okay. And then we're starting to think, is there anything that needs to go behind this final pot here? So we've got all these other, crisscrossing of where these come all the way down, basically, where we might want to make them a little bit darker, for example, or before we put this branch on. So for example, this one, it comes all the way down there. I'm going to just get some of that in a little bit darker. Bring that down so it's kind of a continuous branch coming in there. And again, explore your colours. You might think, I'm going to go in with purple or another colour you might go in with. I've got this is a navy blue actually, this one. So I might just put that on as well. But again, I'm fixing it in, but I'm going to be really light of touch there so it doesn't kind of smudge out into the background. As I said, you could use like a cotton bud or something. That helps, or your blending tip, or you just kind of go for it there. And join those up, look, like that. And these are still going behind everything. So we're just looking at where these other ones that were in behind that we were doing that have come down through the sky, and we can kind of layer them up over now. And again, very light on the top of your finger. It's such a mishmash here. We can't really see much going on at all, can we? There's just a few crossovers of what might be what could be a bit of hedgerow over there. It's very blurry. Put some of those in there. So I'm just going to bring these over just so they don't look like they're floating. And then I've got this one here, still going over, crisscrossing, aren't they? These here. And then putting these slightly darker ones in here. And again, this is where you've got to be a bit careful blending it. Keep blowing that dust off. We're still working in the back here. And as I said, you don't have to put everything in either. If when you're doing this, you think, I don't really want to put all this dark down here, then absolutely you don't have to. It's your picture. You can leave stuff out, put stuff in. There's a few like other kind of purpley tones up here. I might see what I've got there. Just bring a bit of a purpley tone up here, I think. Touching it very gently because I don't want to mix those in too much with the orangey ones. And then once we get to that point, we're actually ready to go in with the bit over the top, and that then is going to completely transform it. But what I'd suggest at this point is just take a step back from it and see, see how things are looking there. The only thing I might do on this is just create just a little bit of just gently, kind of a silhouette, just pop a little bit of a darker colour in so it pops the actual, that's standing out just a little bit. So I'm just going to go in with a bit of purple in there. The other colours are going over. So I'm just going to pop that in there just so it kind of is a bit brighter. But yeah, so a good point to just have a really look far back because it will feel like nonsense at the moment to us, to our brain. But once we get the fabulous branches coming over the top, or all of the grasses, which will build up in a moment. So I'm just going to come back to everyone, take a little break and have a little look at your work where you are. I'll take a pause there. So we're going to go on to, say, around the final stages of starting to get these different twigs and branches into place. And this is where it will all fit into place, and the brain will really like this once we get going with it. So my suggestion is that we actually go in and get the dark colours in first, and then we can then place the snow over the top of that. Again, it sets it into space, but also it helps with the negative spaces because sometimes it's easier to draw a shadow than it is to draw around something and try and create a shape, but we can follow a shadow. So what I would tend to do is start with one dark area somewhere. And I pop this here. Doesn't matter if it's not exact. And again, I'm trying to pop in, get the little nodules in as well, little buds that are growing. And then that's a great way of doing the branches anyway, because they come off each other. Makes them makes them more natural if we get that twig shape in. So we're getting the shadow side in first. There's another little, and then you can follow the twists and turns because they kind of go backwards and forwards, don't they? And with the shape of them. I'm going to bring that back now this way. There's just the side of there. And comes all the way under here. And there's one above it. So we're just following all those little where the buds are going to be growing, basically. Yeah, so that's one. Now you can do it two ways. You can put all of those branches in if you want, like get the whole branch in going backwards, or you can do it in stages. So I'm keeping this a little bit more crisp now. I might soften it, I might not. We don't want it really soft though, because we want it to stand proud of the background as though it's in the front. So I've kind of gone this way. There's another one in just a little bit behind it there. So I'll pop that one in. And again, you can use different colours. You don't have to go in with all dark. You might make one slightly darker and one not. But I am taking notice of where all these little buds are growing. Because that does make it feel much more natural. Just follow that around. Even if it's mostly light, you can cover that over after. Now you can fix that in place if you want with a bud or something, just a little bit. It'll make the colour slightly um, softer if you do that with either of these. I'm just following, so I'm following all of these shadows. This one here, so I've got that one, that one. I haven't done the bud yet. And then there is this going all the way back. All the way back there. We can just follow it round. A little bud coming. So this is again, it's the underside. I'm going to bring this one round as well. So we want to go up over the top of the sun. And then we've got the underside up and up there like that. And then we've got this that's going upwards there. Over the top. And again, we've got one going behind it. So this bud's coming over here. Just taking note of all these twists and turns. Now the one behind, I might make it just slightly lighter. I might even go in with a bit of a browner colour. Let's see. Make it a bit less, so it's going behind, so it's not quite as dark as this and intense. You can always add a little bit of shadow to it if you want to with another colour. Okay, so we've got that going back, and then continuing this line across here, because we've got the shad underside here. It's feeling quite natural as well. Kind of tailors off there. So I think we've got most of that. And then we've got just a tiny bit of this here, where that goes. So I think got most of it, but I mean, we can make changes anyway as we go. There's another little bit there and something over here, but I'm not getting too worried. I'm focusing on this one at the minute. So blow off any dust, and then what you can then focus on is you can either get the snow on, and again, decide what colour. You know, do you want to go really white, or do you want to go, you know, something like that, or lilac? That's grey, isn't it? So just have a little look at the colours you've got and decide what do you want to go. I think I'm going to go white actually, just so it pops forwards. But I could put maybe another colour on there, like a bit of a, I did have a lilac actually. Let's see if I've still got that somewhere. Yeah, it's not going to pop off enough. I want it to pop off. So I'm just going to go in with the other side. So we can just kind of add that on. I'm just trying to follow the line, and I'm just breaking it up a bit. So that it feels more natural and it's not just a really straight angular line. But we'll know it's snow. But this is a fun bit, it's just popping all of these. And you know, it might not come all the way up because obviously snow falls off, doesn't it, when it's getting there. But because we've got that shadow line in, it's so much easier to add these other colours on top of the branch. Oh, there's another bit there. I missed that bit coming out this side. It goes over there. So again, getting these in. So we're just adding this on. It's amazing the difference this starts to make. It's incredible, I think. Again, we're just carefully just adding these in. You might need to put more pressure on though if your pastel's not soft. Just give it a really good kind of push down. Like you really push it down, see if it kind of creates that pressure over the top. So I'm continuing to do this. I might use less pressure anyway, where it's not quite as bright. You know, as it's going backwards. Just I'm going to use it more softly, deliberately there, because I don't want it to be quite as bright. Where it's catching the light, I'll put a bit more pressure on, like here. And certainly here, you know, where we're seeing that. There's a little bit of something there, so I'm going to put a very small amount there. Some suggestion here, there's a bit, but again, keeping that nice and not much pressure there. Then anywhere else you can see, so you might have some other overlapping bits and pieces in the background, which you might very softly, you might not want them to really ping because they're just kind of going off to the side, but there might be a few little crossing branches or something that you can see, but you don't have to put those in. If you think it's just not gonna, it's gonna spoil the effect, then by all means you don't need to do that. I'll just pop those in. And then from there, so there might be a bit on there as well, look. So from there, then we've got to think about, you know, is there anything else? I am going to pop this one in there because I think that's quite a nice crisscross, but again, you don't have to. So I'm just following that underneath and making that a bit softer. I don't want it too right. It comes over here. It just makes it feel a bit more real to me that that's a lovely one to do then. And then we're thinking about these buds now. And getting those in, because again, that really helps because they'll pop forward. So it's thinking about the different tones that you want in there. And then you'll have underneath the shadow side colour, something in the middle, and then the light colour there on top. So it's just going for, I think I tried this kind of reddish one here. Just go with what you've got in your kit is my suggestion. Did I use that one? No, it's quite pinky. So I'm just going to go for it and just kind of not worry about the top of it actually, because I'm going to put that in over the top. But I'm just going to just get something that's shaped berryish, because we'll know what it is. Get that set in. Now, I know often I'll say put the shadow in. However, when you've got little shapes like that, that can be quite difficult. So I'm going to just very carefully put the shadow in underneath it. It's not always the easiest thing to do. So I am almost drawing a little bit of the shape in there. And then going in with a darker colour underneath, you can decide what that is. Probably just go in. And this is where you could use a cotton bud or something, or you can transfer over. If you're, because mine is so tiny, I'm just going to transfer a bit of that darker colour over from here. So it feels like underneath, might not be dark enough actually. I might have to just be really careful with the edge and just go for it. Okay, and then if that happens and you go into it, you don't want, you've gone over, just go back over it. Just make that line a bit more solid. And then before I put the highlight on, what I'm actually going to do is just put the end on. So I'm going to go in with, again with the dark. So we've got this kind of almost like a little cap, isn't it, on there? And then I can surround that with snow afterwards. So I'll make it just slightly wider. And again, all this is trial and error. So don't worry, just have a little go and have a play. And then I'm going to try and get a little bit, I'm just going to dab it along of what feels a bit snowy at one side. Like that. And then a little bit of snow around the edge. So what's happened here is I've gone, because it's so chalky as this, I've gone between, so I'm just going to pop a little bit of this orange back in so it kind of puts the shape out. So then we've started to do that. Now it might be on yours, I'm going to use this one instead. You might be able to, you might have a little bit more coming round of one of the colours, so you can always put that in, if it's coming around the top. And then you can do the same with the other ones. And what happens is our minds then can see that this is in the front and everything's sinking back. And the more berries you put on, the more it will all make sense. I mean, this one's quite covered in snow, isn't it? So it's quite in an interesting shape. And this is what the brain likes, is a consistency, because it understands them. We know what that is when we're looking across from one thing to another. And it's like, ah, yeah, that's what happens. There's always a group of rose hips together, often. So again, just go in. You can fix it very gently just by tapping your finger. And then you're going in with the shadow. Shadow on this one. And we know there's a top, so I'm just putting the top in anyway. And then you can start to experiment again with the snowy areas on there. And because there's snow elsewhere, again, the brain knows that's what's going on. So we're making these connections. I'm struggling with this because mine is it's very chalky, but we'll keep going. I might just pop a little bit of this darker one in there. And then, we've got the other ones as well. So you might have little bits poking off it or whatever. And then we can then go in with anything else we've got coming across, and start to pop that in. I'm quite interested to get this one in. It's going in the background, so it's quite dark now. So I'm going to go in almost with a purpley bluey tones that are going to sink back more than red, because red's a much warmer, brighter colour, whereas anything blue based, for example, will go in on, will pop forwards less. So I'm going to start with a dark one, and then again, and just go in, darken it off even more. Again, it knows that there's like a little bit of a cap on the rose hip there. And it may be, you can't really see much snow on these in the background. You just, leave it as it is. If it's kind of like gone a little bit out of shape, you can always pop a little bit of background colour in just to neaten things up again. Just lighten that around it. So we can actually put the shape back in with the background colour, which is helpful with pastels. And then there's another couple, and then I'll probably just leave it there. So this one's, I don't know when that. It's coming to, actually. I don't think I've drawn that one in. And this is the thing, you can do them as you go. If you're not sure what you want in at the time. I think this time I'm going to actually just draw, because this is an easier pastel to draw with as well, is to draw the shadow side in, because it is quite dark anyway. And then I'm just going to go in with this darker shade in it. And I'm putting a lot of pressure on here. If you can tap your finger in and get it into place, that's great, but mine is so small, it's difficult. So I think I'm going to have to use my blending tip to get in there. When you've got a bigger size, you can blend, it's a bit easier to get your finger in there. But it's a lovely thing to have a go at. It's another thing to try. And again, there's not much, can't really see too much snow on that. I'm going to put this last one in here. Again, I'm going back to a reddy colour, but I'm not going to put as much pressure on. So like everything else, where's that one coming off? That one. Like everything else, I'm going to, if it's in the background, I'm going to pop the shape in a bit. I'm going to keep it softened and tap it out as though it's partly there, but partly sinking away. We want it to, we do want it to sink away so that it's partly there, but going into the distance like that. And it won't jump forwards then if we just soften it down a little bit. I might even just use a slightly brown colour rather than a really dark one, so that it's just there. And then I can just feel there's a slight lighter bit. So again, I'm not going in with my bright white because I don't want to pop forwards. I'm just going in with a kind of a creamy colour. So it's suggesting it's a bit lighter in the middle, but it's going backwards. And then if there's anything that you want to change at that point, like this sun bit, I'm going to just add a little bit too. I want to actually cross over some of these other little bits of twigs, really. Just going to do that. Just across the middle, and then I'm going to just smarten up this little sunset a little bit here. This little sun coming through the hedgerow. And just make it feel a bit more sunlight. So I'm just going to brighten up some of the colours there. Where's the white one? I'm just going to add a little bit of a pop of real white there as well. That feels better. And the same again, so if there's any areas you think, oh, I want to lighten an area up, we've just got to be really careful with how we go in. But it might be that you've reached the capacity with the layers of colour coming through, but you'll have to just give that a go and see. Sometimes we have. And if so, that's fine. It's just one of the things as we go along. Sometimes you can add a bit more, sometimes you can't. When working, but obviously it's best that we've done most of it to come through because it's more natural then. But we can top up certain areas a little bit so that it does. I think I'm not going to really put any more of that on there at all. I think I'm just going to leave it there. So I'm just giving it a little bit of a blow as well. The thing with anything in nature, like the rose hips and things, I think keeping the shapes natural and fluid really helps. Sometimes the more we try and draw an exact shape, it can look quite, it can be precise. There's nothing wrong with that. But if the rest of your picture is quite loose and flowy and kind of blended, then sometimes if it's too precise, it can just completely look different. But then it works sometimes as well. And that's kind of where I would leave that for today and leave it as a an example. You could always, there's other ones you can put on, but I'm going to leave that there. But I hope that's been really helpful, and I'll come back with final pause and see how you're getting on. But yeah, it's a lovely one to do. Really nice, and really nice to get this popping forward all of a sudden. We're like, oh, it all makes sense now. It all makes sense to us. Yeah, it's good. It's good. So keep on creating. It's a real joy to get in that flow.